Welcome aboard, fellow enthusiasts, as we embark on another incredible video. Welcome to our channel, where today's focus is all about statue of Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão. Let's get started. The statue of Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão, is a wooden sculpture now preserved in the Church of São Pedro in Bainguinim, Goa, India. Now, let's shift our focus to the historical origin of the devotion to Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão, and embark on an intellectual exploration of its various dimensions. In 1614, Friar Francisco de São Antonio, who was the rector of Our Lady of Victory, Jaffna Patão Nossa Senhora do Vitria, Jaffna Patão, desired a statue for the church altar. He asked a local sculptor named Anacati to carve one from a piece of wood he had brought from Cochin. As Anacati was carving the statue of the Virgin Mary holding her infant son, it began to be regarded as miraculous. People visited Anacati's house to pray before the statue, with many reporting cures. Even those who prayed while holding wood shavings from the statue experienced healing through the intercession of the Virgin Mary. Some who showed disrespect toward the statue reportedly faced the wrath of God. Witnessing these miracles, Anacati was both amazed and frightened. He dared not continue and asked the friar to take the unfinished statue to the church. On 24 July 1614, the statue was taken in a public procession from the sculptor's house to the church. As the procession passed by the royal palaces, the king and royal family appeared to witness it. The statue was then placed on an altar in the center of the church. Due to the numerous miracles attributed to the statue, it became known as Our Lady of Miracles Pathume Martha, Jaffna Patão. People from other parts of Ceylon, as well as neighboring regions such as Santhome and Nagapattinam, went on pilgrimages to visit Our Lady of Miracles. The statue was believed to cure the sick and disabled, win battles, and protect people from natural disasters both on land and at sea. These miracles inspired many to be baptized, including Anacati, the sculptor of the statue, who later sought and received baptism. The foundation stone for a new church, Our Lady of Miracles Jaffna Patão, was laid on 8 May 1614 on the feast of the glorious Ascension of Jesus, and it became the main church in the Kingdom of Jaffna. During the 1620 revolt led by Miguel Araki, with the help of Thanya Benek and Badiga mercenaries to capture Jaffna, the wives of the Portuguese, hearing gunshots, sought shelter inside the sanctuary containing the statue of Our Lady of Miracles and prayed for her protection. Suddenly, an intense brightness filled the room, causing them to bow their heads. The imperfect, unpainted statue appeared to have its face and hands colored with vermilion, a vision that lasted for 2 weeks, during which the Portuguese forces defeated their enemies. Victory was achieved on 1 February 1621, and a solemn high mass was sung the following day. Chief Captain Felipe de Oliveira, who never went into battle without first dipping the flag to her, ordered that the flag be permanently placed in her chapel. A fortress named Our Lady of Miracles was built, establishing Jaffna as the capital of the new kingdom, and Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna, was solemnly proclaimed the protectress of the kingdom. On 20 February 1627, the Saturday before the first Sunday in Lent, a great natural disaster struck Jaffna. Rain and wind continued through Sunday and Monday, and people sought refuge inside the Church of Our Lady of Miracles for protection. The sea rose dramatically, and waves battered against the walls as a 10-foot storm surge rushed inland, tearing down houses. When the wave reached the church, it split in two, leaving the building surrounded by high walls of water moving with great force. The church tiles scattered like dried leaves, and the building itself shook violently 3 times. As the water rose and reached the church entrance, panic ensued. The friars began to recite the litany of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and one friar, along with a few devotees, reportedly saw Our Lady place her hand under the feet of the infant Jesus she held, as if to embrace him. From that moment, the waters stopped advancing, and the wind began to lose strength. The storms, wind, and waves swept vessels inland, and many buildings, including all other churches in Jaffna, were destroyed except for the Church of Our Lady of Miracles. For the next 10 days, soldiers and the clergy worked to bury the dead and care for the homeless, the sick, and the dying. On 22 March, Captain Philippe de Oliveira passed away and was buried in the main chapel of the Church of Our Lady of Miracles. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of the moon adored the King and Queen of the Universe in Jaffna Patão and explore its various aspects. In 1622, Easter Sunday fell on 27 March. The procession set out with the Most Holy Sacrament of the altar, accompanied by the feretories of Our Lady of Miracles and Street Anthony, with all possible pomp. When the canopy of the Most Holy Sacrament began to move out of the church, the full moon, in the sight of all, deviated from its customary orbit and came down, maintaining a proportionate altitude, about 6 paces in front of the Most Holy Sacrament. It moved along all the streets of Jaffna, as if to accompany the King and Queen of Heaven. At the end of the procession, when the Eucharist returned to the church, the moon returned to its place in the universe. This miraculous event, witnessed by non-Christians and new converts alike, was seen as the moon's way of adoring its creator and confirming the faith of the neophytes. The moon participated in the procession without changing its appearance as it moved through the streets of Jaffna Patão. Upon the procession's return to the church, it stopped above the church, like the Star of the Magi, over the house of the Virgin Mother. On that Easter morning, by the glorious intercession of the Mother of our Creator, Jaffna Patão witnessed the majesty of Christ in glory. Fernando de Queiroz, Manuscript, Book 4, Chapter 10, page 558. With our curiosity piqued, let's embark on a dedicated exploration of documented reports of miracles and its fascinating intricacies. Friar Antonio learned Tamil and became fluent in the language. He petitioned the captain and judge of Jaffna Patão, Amateur Trausos de Souza, requesting a judicial inquiry into the credibility of the reported miracles. The captain documented testimonies related to these miracles, which were preserved in the archives. Friar Paulo da Trindade later obtained a copy of these witness testimonies. Friar Paulo da Trindade, OFM, was the Commissary General over the Franciscans in India and Deputy of the Holy Office of Goa. His chronicle, Conquista Espiritual do Oriente, describes in detail the work of the Franciscans in India and neighboring regions. A copy of the manuscript Conquista Espiritual do Oriente is preserved in the Vatican Library under Cod. Lat. No. 7746. Chapters 46, 52, 53, and 54 of Volume I provide detailed information on the famous statue of Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão. Similar to the Mahavamsa, the chronicle of Sri Lankan history maintained by Buddhist monks, the Portuguese missionaries also kept records of Ceylon's history. Jesuit priest Fernando de Queiroz provided detailed accounts of Ceylon's history. In Volume 2, Book 4 of his work, he dedicated 3 full chapters, chapters 8, 9, and 10 to Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão. Get ready to uncover the mysteries surrounding persecution of Catholics and obstacles for missionary apostolate, as we navigate its intriguing terrain. The history of Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão, reflects the lives of Catholics in Ceylon during that period. The remarkable resemblance between the Anuradhapura cross, the bleeding cross of St. Thomas in Chennai, and the baptismal pond near Bhavaniya suggests the presence of ancient Christianity in Ceylon as early as the 5th century. The kings of the Anuradhapura kingdom issued edicts of tolerance, allowing Christians to organize and worship freely. This was a time moving toward a dharmista society. However, when the Portuguese later established trading links and Catholic missionaries began evangelizing, it led to the persecution of Catholics and obstacles to evangelization until the Portuguese established their rule in Ceylon. As the Portuguese began losing territories in Ceylon to the Dutch intensified their persecution of Catholics and attempted to eliminate Catholicism from Ceylon. In 1658, the Portuguese lost their last stronghold in Ceylon, the fort of Our Lady of Miracles, Fortaleza de Nossa Senhora dos Milagres de Jaffna Patão, to the Dutch East India Company. With the fall of Jaffna Fort, the Dutch took the Portuguese as prisoners of war. The Dutch rulers expelled all Portuguese from Ceylon, a task that previous rulers had attempted but failed to accomplish. The Portuguese prisoners in Jaffna were subjected to ill treatment, hardship, and scrutiny by the Dutch, and many died during their voyage to Batavia and Malacca. Despite the intense scrutiny they faced, the prisoners managed to smuggle the statue of Our Lady of Miracles with them to Batavia. Even after reaching Batavia and Malacca, the prisoners continued to endure maltreatment that violated contemporary norms, including being jailed alongside native Javanese, chained, forced to perform heavy labor, and prohibited from possessing Catholic icons. Additionally, orphans and widows were compelled to attend Dutch churches, and the prisoners were not provided with adequate food, clothing, shelter, or medical care. In 1661, the statue of Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão, was taken to Portuguese Goa in India. It was carried in a public procession to the convent of St. Francis of Assisi and kept in one of its chapels. The statue is now preserved in the Church of São Pedro, located along the Mandovi River in Bainguinim, Goa, and Daman, India. The Dutch ruled Ceylon for 140 years but only extended some tolerance toward Catholics near the end of their rule. During the Dutch period in Ceylon, the Catholic faith was proscribed, church properties were confiscated, and priests were banished. The Dutch issued a proclamation that made it punishable by death for anyone to harbor or provide protection to a Roman Catholic priest. Catholic schools and churches were forced to convert to Calvinism by the Dutch Reformed Church. The confiscated bells of Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão N.S. dos Milagres de Jaffna Patão, 1648, and Nossa Senhora dos Milagres became part of the Dutch church Kreuzkerk inside the fort. Catholicism seemed to have visibly disappeared with the Portuguese. However, Catholics strengthened their faith despite being subjected to oppression, humiliation, and impoverishment by the Calvinists of the Dutch Reformed Church. Many Catholic families migrated from Jaffna and other Dutch-governed areas. Catholics from Manthe fled into the Wani wilderness with the statue of Our Lady of Good Health, Manthe. A daughter of a Portuguese captain named Helena built a small church to house the statue of Our Lady of Manthe, and the place became known as Silena Marantha Madhu, which eventually evolved into the Shrine of Our Lady of Madhu. Some Catholics in the south fled with the statue that is now housed in the Shrine of Our Lady of Matara. This statue arrived safely over the waves inside a wooden crate, untouched by the sea, to care for the people of Ruanbrata. Yet Catholicism, considered a dying faith under Dutch colonization, experienced a remarkable revival. Underground missionaries from Goa, such as Joseph Vaz, worked in Jaffna, Kandy, and Street and Tawawapasalam, laying the foundation for a national Catholic church in Ceylon. Saint Joseph Vaz was imprisoned under false accusations by Huguenot Calvinists, who claimed he was a Portuguese spy. During his time in prison, he took the opportunity to learn the Sinhala language. In 1693, while imprisoned in Kandy, Saint Joseph Vaz performed a miracle by bringing rain during a severe drought. In exchange, the king of Kandy released him, offered him protection, and granted him the freedom to preach the gospel in the kingdom of Kandy. In a similar incident, fishermen who refused to hand over Father Antonio to Dutch pursuers expected him to prevent sea erosion. Father Antonio planted a cross at the location most threatened by the sea waves, and on the third day, the waves receded, revealing a protective sandbank. Witnessing this miracle, the Dutch allowed Father Antonio to stay there and built a church that is now known as St. Anthony's Shrine, Kotjekade. In 1544, St. Francis Xavier baptized over 10,000 people in 13 villages along the Travancore coast, giving each a Portuguese name written in Tamil. He learned to teach prayers such as the Nicene Creed, Lord's Prayer, Hail Mary, and Hail Holy Queen Sovereigna in Tamil. In the same year, While St. Francis Xavier was in Punakale, South India, a delegation from villages like Keripata in Pattam and Manna came to express their interest in becoming Catholics and invited him to Manna. The saint could not go himself, so he sent a cleric, also named Francis Xavier, who zealously preached the faith and successfully baptized the people in the villages of Pattam. The island of Manna was under Jaffna, and the king's brother, the rightful heir to the Jaffna kingdom, lived in exile, fearing his brother's cruelty. He and his leading men wished to become Christians and sought Portuguese help to regain his throne. Opponents of the new faith instilled fear and warned King Kankili Isakarasasikaran Sankili I that unless he took prompt action against the converts in Manna, he would soon lose his kingdom to the Portuguese. Losing Manna's strategic location would create economic and security risks for Jaffna. Sanjali I vowed not to leave any Catholic converts alive, recruiting about 5,000 men and personally leading a military contingent to Manna. He issued an edict, renounce Christianity or die, and ordered a horrific slaughter executed with great cruelty, with no distinction made between age, gender, or status. Children cried out as their mothers tried to hide them from seeing their companions beheaded. There was no resistance, and the new converts, inspired by the power of faith, offered their throats to the executioners. Cleric Francis Xavier, along with Sina Urasinga, a governor or tributary prince of Manna, and others serving the Jaffna king, bravely confessed their Catholic faith and were put to the sword. Between 600 and 700 people were martyred, and the massacre of the Minories is believed to have occurred between October and December 1544. In 1548, St. Francis Xavier landed in Manna and kissed the ground where Catholics had been martyred. He then went to Jaffa and asked King Sankili I to stop harming and harassing Catholics. However, St. Francis Xavier could not trust Sankili I, and as he was leaving Jaffna on his way to Galay, he lamented, "Unhappy island, how many dead bodies will cover your shores, and with how much blood will you be inundated?" Those who fled to the mainland in 1544 began returning to Pattam in 1561, and the Catholic community flourished until the Dutch began persecuting them. The Dutch conquered Manna Fort in 1658, prompting missionaries and Catholic families to flee as refugees to Jaffna. Historical documents mention Pattam Patti Paddy as the place of martyrdom. The missionary Enrique Enriquez, who compiled Tamil Christian doctrine, served as the parish priest in Manna from 1561 to 1564. In a letter written from Manna in 1561, he noted that Pattam village was half a league from Manna Fort. In July 1945, Rev. Dr. Peter J.B. Antoninus and his team used ancient maps for excavation and succeeded in locating the Pattam site, known to local residents as Paddy Tar Bay, located at the 2nd milepost, half a mile west of the Fort Alamana Road. Further excavation by Antoninus's team revealed the church altar and several skeletons, including those of children, lying in various directions. Some heads were found separated from their bodies, and parts of the bones on the edges showed a reddish color. Earlier, in 1924, Delandis and Stanislas conducted excavations at Thoroughbally, leading to the belief that Thoroughbally was the burial place of Catholic martyrs. They subsequently built a church in honor of the Queen of Martyrs in Manna. When Governor Martin Afonso de Souza was near the island with a powerful fleet, Sankili I agreed to Portuguese conditions for peace. However, he indirectly continued to harm Catholics and Portuguese interests. In the south, Vidya Bandara WikipediaReader, the son-in-law of King Bhuvan VII, tortured and executed Catholics and missionaries, burning their houses and churches. Missionaries were forced to hide in the jungles for protection. Vidya Bandara then fled north and joined King Sankili I in an effort to eliminate Catholicism and Portuguese influence from the island. Fray Belchoir de Lisboa and 4 of his companions were the first friars to preach the faith in Jaffna Patão, and they were martyred. While the friar was being tortured, the king asked him why he wept, and the friar replied that he was saddened by the misery of a king who chose to remain a slave to the devil. The 1560 expedition led by Viceroy Dom Constantino de Braganza to subdue Sanquilli failed. However, fearing a more powerful expedition, Sanquilli agreed to all the Portuguese conditions. One of the articles of the treaty stipulated that no impediment should be placed on those who wished to embrace Christianity. St. Francis Xavier met with King Bhuvankarabhau VII of Kut in Sri Lanka and later with King Jayara of Kandy, asking them to allow missionary work. However, the kings were more interested in securing a Portuguese garrison for protection than in spreading the gospel or protecting Catholics. There were Catholic communities along the west coast, from Jaffa to Weligama, and on the east coast in places like Trincomalee. King Bhuvankarabhau VII told St. Francis Xavier that if he were to get baptized, the people would rebel against him. For this reason, he could not grant the Franciscans much freedom to preach the gospel to his subjects. However, he assured the saint that he would cease to obstruct the Franciscans if the viceroy would protect both him and his kingdom. The Moors, whose support Maiden depended on, sought to take over the entire island, while the Portuguese were primarily interested in trade and breaking the Moors' trade monopoly. King Bhuvankarabhau's strategy was to use the Portuguese against Maiden of Sitawaka and his Moorish allies for his own protection, ensuring that neither faction would take control of his kingdom. On one occasion, a sorcerer advised King Bhuvankarabhau to eliminate all the Franciscans. For John de Villeconde, who was residing in the palace and teaching the king's grandson, offered to demonstrate the truth of the Catholic faith. He requested that a large pile of wood be set on fire in the palace courtyard. He then walked into the pyre and, standing amidst the flames, challenged the sorcerer to follow him. The sorcerer hesitated, but the king had him seized and thrown into the fire, from which he emerged burned while the flames did not even touch the friar's clothing. Though the king revered the friar, he still refused to grant the Franciscans greater freedom in exercising their apostolate. King Bhuvankarabhau's grandson, King Dharmapala of Kut, ultimately had the courage to be baptized and ruled as a Catholic king. The history of Sri Lanka spans over 2,000 years of monarchical rule. During the period of Portuguese Ceylon, some members of the royal families of Kandy, Kut, and Jaffa embraced the new faith through baptism. Some of those baptized escaped to avoid persecution, while others were martyred. Prince Jugo, the eldest son of King Bhuvankarabhau VII, was killed by his father for wanting to become a Christian. Following his death, people reported seeing a cross of fire in the sky, and at the spot where he was killed, the earth opened in the shape of a cross. These signs inspired many to convert to the new faith. King Kankili I Sankili commanded Sankili to sought the help of the Dutch, Moors, and Faniaba to defeat the Portuguese but ultimately failed. In 1619, after his defeat, Sankili I was captured and taken to go for trial. While in prison, he called for the superior of the Franciscan fathers. Sankili told the priest that he had learned about the Christian faith and had great veneration for Peter of Betancourt, but he hesitated to be baptized due to his ambition to rule and fear of his people. King Sankili I expressed his desire to save his soul, stating that it was better to be a Catholic coolie than a pagan king. He was baptized as Don Philip. He spent his final days in sincere repentance for the atrocities he had committed, with his eyes fixed on the crucifix. His wife, along with King Sankili's brother and sister, devoted their lives to charitable work in Goa. The last prince of the Jaffa throne was young Dom Constantino, and the Portuguese intended to restore him to the throne when he reached the age of majority. However, Prince Dom Constantino chose a monastic life as a Franciscan friar, taking the name Constantine of Christ. Now, we shift our focus to 400-year devotion to Our Lady of Miracles, Jaffna Patão, a topic that deserves our attention. Once, during the Feast of Our Lady, Captain Major Philip de Oliveira suggested that the statue of Our Lady of Miracles be carried in procession. A priest, respecting his wishes, prostrated before Our Lady and said in a loud voice, "My Lady, punish not my boldness, but cast thy eyes on the devotion with which thy devout captain and these people wish to put thee in possession of this kingdom of which thou art the patroness and refuge." He then kissed the feet of the statue. When he placed his hand on the statue and lifted it from the niche, he felt no weight. In astonishment, the priest turned to the people who were on their knees and said, "Praise God, gentlemen, in the most sacred Virgin, for she carries herself." He then placed the statue on the feretory. This priest later affirmed to everyone that he felt no weight and that it felt as light as a feather in his hand. This miracle was confirmed again when restoring the statue to its niche. In the presence of the people, the priest said, "Let us go, my queen and my lady, to thy niche place." As he reached to lift the statue from the stand, Our Lady rose by herself and placed herself in his hands, leaving everyone amazed at this miracle. The people thanked and praised God and Our Lady of Miracles, noting the joy observed on her face during the procession. In this way, she demonstrated her acceptance as the patroness of the Jaffna Kingdom. From 1614 to 1658, while the statue was in Jaffna, the devotees daily praised Our Lady of Miracles by singing hymns, including the versicle and oration O Gloriosa Domina in the morning, Ave Maris Stella in the afternoon, and at night chanting litanies that began with the verse Tota Patra es Moria. One Christmas night, as they sang the hymn Te Deum and reached the verse Tu ad libranum sus atruus hominem, non horvisti virginis uterum, all those present reported seeing the statue of Our Lady of Miracles Jaffna Patão appear beautiful and resplendent, with her entire face lit up with joy. Every year on her feast day, the statue, adorned with precious jewels, was taken in a procession through the streets of the town. Devotion to Our Lady of Miracles Jaffna Patão resumed in 1661 at St. Francis of Assisi Church in Goa, and continues annually at the Chapel of Nossa Senhora de Piedade in Goa, India. By the rivers of Mandovi, devotees pray to Our Lady of Jaffna Patão, asking that the words of their mouths and the meditations of their hearts be pleasing to the Prince of Peace. Some scholars, based on written records and authentic traditions, believe that the devotional relationship between the people of Indo-Ceylon and the Virgin Mary began with the rising of the Star of Bethlehem. Historian Joe de Barros mentioned that a king of the island of Ceylon was one of the three kings, the biblical Magi, who went to Bethlehem to worship the King of the Jews, and that he returned with a portrait of the Virgin Mary. De Barros, Decade 3, Book 7, Chapter XI. The Nestorian cross, discovered in Anuradhapura in 1912, proves the presence of Nestorian Christians in Sri Lanka from early times, coupled with the traditional legend that Apostle Thomas preached from the hillock where the present St. Thomas Church in Gintapisha stands. The 6th century traveller Cosmas Indicopustis noted, even in Taprobin, where the Indian Sea is, there is a church of Christians with clergy and a body of believers. Christian Topography, Book 3, pages 118–119. Devotees at Santhome Basilica in Chennai and the Basilica of Our Lady of Good Health in Velankani town, both in Tamil Nadu, India, were miraculously saved from the 2004 tsunami waves. According to legend, St. Thomas the Apostle planted a wooden post, the St. Thomas miraculous post, at the top of the steps leading to Santhome Basilica, and declared that the sea would not pass that point. Currently, the novena to Our Lady of Miracles Jaffna Patão begins 9 days before her feast. Each day, the statue is moved from São Pedro Church to the Chapel of Nossa Senhora de Piedade, Our Lady of Pity, for the novena. The Feast of Our Lady of Miracles Jaffna Patão is celebrated on the first Sunday of May. Get ready to uncover the mysteries surrounding other references as we navigate its intriguing terrain. Trinidad, Paulo do, chapters 1–56 of volume III of Conquista Espiritual do Orient, translated by East. Pires and Immersement as chapters on the introduction of Christianity to Ceylon. Shiloh, 1972. Ferno de Queiroz. A Conquista Temporal y Espiritual de Silo. The Temporal and Spiritual Conquest of Ceylon. Vol. 2, Book 4, Chapters 8, 9 and A History of Ceylon. An abridged translation of Professor Peter Courtenay's work. By M.G. Francis George Shahama Ceylon Zeit de Konigs Buvenica Bohu and Franz Cavers Earth Martyrs of Manna from authentic documents. Father Ojub Antoninus, OMI General Publishers Limited, 20 Parsons Road, Fort Colombo. I love hearing from you, so leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments.